fourth and final award tonight goes to Tim Sandlin. Now we got a competition going, don't we? Tim is a writer and Wyoming writer through and through. Most of his 11 fiction novels, which I absolutely love, are set in Wyoming and feature Wyoming characters and small towns. He's an accomplished screenwriter with film credits including a Showtime original, Floating Away, and Skipped Parts, a Trimark film. And he is also a well-published book reviewer. While Tim's writings alone merit a Governor's Arts Award, there is more. He provides incredible support and mentors Wyoming writers, not in a general sort of raw way, but in a time and brain-consuming work of teaching, mentoring, and editing. Tim has directed the Jackson Hole Writers Conference for 22 years. By his work, he has transformed Jackson into a destination for writers each June. Tim's prose offers a vivid portrayal of Western life, and his passion and devotion to his work have not only assisted the Wyoming writing community, but also improved the art of writing in our state. Please turn your attention to the screens for the video about Tim.
I've typed a couple of million words on it, 6 or 7 novels before I switched to computers. So it's been there and back. It's got fingerprints permanently on some of these keys in here. And it's why I don't have fingerprints. I can't do the fingerprint thing on the iPhone. This is Pearl Street Bagels, social center of Jackson, I guess. I wrote 3 or 4 novels at a table over there. And it's where I come if I want to get my creative juices moving. Coffee shops are where good ideas come from, and bars are where bad ideas come from.
Tim Sandlin used to come in every day to Jedediah's, the House of Sourdough. So he would sit there and read, and then write out his stories on yellow pads of paper, drinking a lot of coffee and eating our sourdough biscuits. And that's where he did most of his work.
Yeah, I wrote in a tent. I wrote in a teepee. It's a nice way to live. Nowadays they call it homeless, but we just lived outdoors. We didn't know.
Wyoming has been very, very dominated by the cowpoke fiction. Tim doesn't come at it that way. What he does is something that you would see if you're walking into Worland and sitting in a cafe. You're going to hear an odd thing about what's going on with that particular marriage. You're going to hear what's up with that kid down the block.
I tend to create characters that aren't very likable, and then 400 pages along, you love them.
Oh, everybody in Wyoming ought to read this one. Rowdy in Paris, she thrust a washed-out yellow sheet of paper in my face and said, "You are responsible for your government's actions." I said, "Not me, I'm from Wyoming."
Tim was always of a mind that the most important thing was you live where you want to live and you do what you want to do.
I think I've had about 40 entry-level jobs. Whenever I started getting a good job, I quit because I was afraid I wouldn't write. So I managed a pizza parlor and I washed dishes. I was an elk skinner. I kind of only took that job because I thought it would look nice on a book cover. And then I didn't get a book cover for 20 years, but I was ready.
When the park roads closed, he'd go out to this bridge and sit alone on this bridge and work. That was when he was doing screenplays. So he'd be reading the book that he was writing the screenplay out of, and I'd run into him up there.
Writing is a really isolating thing. I don't downhill ski and I don't sell real estate. So I never had anybody to talk to in Jackson. When you're first starting out, you can be so desperate for a reader, especially when you're not married to or your mother or somebody. So I decided when I actually started getting published, I would reach out and find somebody to talk to.
The Jackson Hole Writers Conference, a wonderful thing about it has been Tim's caring about the experience of each writer there.
Tim began it years ago, 20-some years ago, and has been with it ever since. He has the ability to draw other writers, famous writers around the country, to come to Wyoming and be a part of the conference.
They do individual sit-down detailed critiques with the folks that have signed up. So you can bring your manuscript and you'll get a pretty accomplished person, give it a good look.
So I don't think there is a point where you can say I'm a real writer. It's just what I do and what I've always done. Like fishermen don't stop fishing. Most writers just, wish they could write more.
Tim Sandlin, winner of a 2016 Governor's Arts Award.
First off, there's a guy named Dean Peterson who did all these videos. He shot them, edited them, did everything. I think he needs a hand. I don't know if he's here or not. Is he back here? Yo, Dean. My new novel is about a guy who can't memorize a short speech and he doesn't remember the names of anyone he knows. I don't know where I got that idea. So I'm going to read this thing a little bit. I'd like to thank Governor Meade and the Wyoming Arts Council for this honor. I appreciate it not just for me, but as proof that the state of Wyoming recognizes the value of its artists and art advocates. I was over at the governor's house this afternoon, and it came to me, he probably doesn't know that I rented 2 cabins off the family ranch for 26 years. The Bar Double R. I had 2 cabins because the refrigerator was in one and the stove was in the other one. I didn't have running water, but I had a phone listed in directory assistance under F. Dostoevsky. Theodore got a lot of calls, and I enjoyed telling the telemarketers he died in 1881. It shows how old I am that I actually knew Matt's great-grandmother, Sylvia. She was a classy lady. I was about 18. She might have been 80. I don't know, but I wasn't used to being around classy ladies, and she intimidated the hell out of me. Cliff Hansen and I used to irrigate together, tromping the fields with our shovels. Cliff was one of the funniest people I ever met. If he hadn't been governor and senator, he could have been a stand-up comic. He and I were in the bed of a pickup truck that fell through a bridge over West Minor Creek. Cliff, who must have been 85 at the time, first made sure that I was okay. Then as the guys in the cab, I think it was Brad, I'm not sure, pulled us out of the creek, he explained the proper way to cross a bridge was tires on the vertical planks, not on the horizontal. One of the reasons I'm so proud to live in Wyoming is because our state supports the arts. A couple years ago, California spent 16 cents per person on art support, while Wyoming gave $1.35. I got to wondering why Wyoming is so good for creative people, and what I came up with is the cowboy ethos. Cowboys are the only profession with its own genre of poetry, its own painting, sculpture, music, dance, and movies. How many of you ever been to the National Real Estate Agents Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada? Or Dance Chef Swing? Only cowboys have the self-confidence it takes to create art. Another thing I read on the internet, so it must be true or they wouldn't let it on the internet. Wyoming is the greatest per capita of people creating things, from knives to hats to tying flies. Practically everyone in the state makes something. And a society is judged by how well it treats its artists. Most of us can name a few poets and philosophers from ancient Greece. Socrates, Plato, but how many can name famous Grecian generals or athletes? Here is a true statement. Emily Dickinson will be remembered 100 years after Michael Jordan is a footnote. By those standards, history will give Wyoming highest marks because of nights like this. Let's do the thank yous. What Bruce Richardson does for Wyoming cannot be exaggerated. You guys at the legislature should make him the official state treasurer. Thank you, Bruce. And thank you, Karen Stewart and Nina Swamidos McConaughey. Nina's boyfriend bought me a drink if I would say Swamidos. Connie Winnicky, who's not here tonight but is back in Jackson, arranged an awful lot of the letters. Martha Bancroft blew her knee out skiing last week. She runs the Center for the Arts in Jackson and does a great job. I would really like to thank two of my friends from 40 years ago. I met Andy Schwartz, who's now a representative, when he was living in a tent on the Teton National Forest. I was living in a teepee, so I was so far up the social scale from him. And thanks to Mike Guru, he hired me 25 years ago when I was already too old to wait tables. But he's been my friend for a long time. The biggest thank you goes to my wife, Carol. Both physically and metaphorically, she's the one who got me here tonight. If I'd had to drive I-80 alone, I would have pulled to Bob Dylan and sent Patti Smith to talk to you guys. She's the one who makes it all fun. And thank you, Carol. And thank you, art supporters for Wyoming. That's it.